Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith and this is a very special day. We are going to be unboxing Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. It's a fully cooperative fantasy campaign adventure, and as you know, anything that's fully cooperative can be played solo, and most of you that watch the channel will definitely recognize the words Gloomhaven on the top of the box. Yes, this is a game which is not going to Kickstarter, and that's one of the biggest things I want to mention right off the top. This is going straight to retail and then to hobby distribution. Now currently it's going to hit retail in Target in the United States approximately around June 28th or so, and then it's going to be for hobby distribution inside of August. So that's really exciting because there won't be much waiting going on for this one when it finally lands. So what I want to do in this video is I want to unbox it for you. I want to show you all the different components you can expect to find inside the box. And then we're going to dive into a full setup for Jaws of the Lion as well as a playthrough. So before I dive into this and unbox it and do a setup video and playthrough, as I mentioned, I want to just take a moment to breathe and just talk about this Gloomhaven universe in general and really what it means for me and even the channel. It's pretty awesome to look at this box and remember back to the original Gloomhaven Kickstarter delivery. It was really cool to actually head to Board Game Geek and discover Gloomhaven prior to the Kickstarter landing for the first time. That was an experience I'll never forget. I remember checking the actual creator out, checking the artist out, and being extremely excited for the upcoming Kickstarter. And when it landed, it didn't disappoint. It was a huge box. It was the best bang for buck thing you could get. It still is. And honestly, what they've done with it over the years, even with the second printing where more people were aware of it at that point, the excitement behind it had mounted, the reviews and playthroughs and so on have come through, and obviously the rankings had also told us on Board Game Geek that this was going to be a big game. The second printing Kickstarter was huge, but again, it was a giant box, and on the channel, I was really fortunate at that point in time to be able to go ahead and just take the first printing that I'd already backed for and use that to actually do playthroughs for that second printing as well. This was earlier on in the life cycle of Rolling Solo, but also do a playthrough that was happening as Isaac was creating scenarios on a daily basis during the actual second printing campaign, which I played through each of them. So in total, when I was all said and done, my own campaign with Gloomhaven, which I didn't finish on the channel because it just, of course, if you play Gloomhaven on video, you're probably going to end up with around 1,000 videos. But in total, I still did my own campaign plus the playthrough of the day by day on the second printing, totaled up to around 120 to 130 videos of Gloomhaven. Like, that is an insane amount. And then of course we recently had Frosthaven, so I've actually was able and fortunate enough to cover that one too. And now they've come to Jaws of the Lion, which is a very different experience. It's going to be a lot more streamlined, a lot slimmer of a box, but it's going to do something, I think, that's going to knock down all the barriers that were there for individuals that were kind of scared to jump into a big, epic, unlockable campaign kind of system that Gloomhaven has become. And this is going to allow you to do it on a more streamlined scale, which I think is going to be huge for retail, which is where exactly it's going first, and then to hobby distribution, as I mentioned. And that's exactly where it should go. And this is really it. This is the best. This is going to become the best entry point into the Gloomhaven universe, because instead of people coming to the Gloomhaven universe and seeing a box the size of a coffin, they're going to see this first, and they're going to say, that's consumable, that's something I can tackle and I can actually do. And then if I love this, I can step it up and go to that dungeon crawler level where it's just epic scale and epic scope, right? And Frosthaven's there as well now. This box on the table just brings me back. When I look at this box and I think back to all the time I spent in the beginning portions of Rolling Solo doing playthrough videos and things like that, and just spending that insane amount of time to film 100 and something videos for Gloomhaven was nuts. And a lot of you remember those prior videos, and I remember you from those prior videos and the comments you made. It gets me really excited for the upcoming setup video and playthrough. So all that said, and this is a lot longer of an overview than I've ever done before for an unboxing, but I think that deserved to be said. I'm going to go ahead right now. We're going to flip over Jaws of the Lion. We'll take a look at the back of the box. We'll see what this game is all about. And obviously it should highlight some of the changes from this to the Gloomhaven version, but we'll also see some of that as we dig through the game itself. You are a member of Jaws of the Lion, one of the most infamous mercenary groups in this rundown backwater. When a sinister cabal starts disappearing the less fortunate of the city, it somehow falls to you to get to the bottom of it, so long as you get paid for your trouble. You can see the new entries to this particular box being the Demolitionist right here, Hatchet, Red Guard, and down at the bottom here, Voidwarden. States right here it's based on the highest rated board game of all time, and as I just talked about, very long-windedly, that is very much correct. States right here, it's a fully cooperative campaign game of tactical combat in a unique fantasy world. Players will assume the roles of hardened mercenaries and work together to fight through a campaign full of choices, challenges, and twists. Each scenario offers streamlined tactical combat without dice against fully automated enemies, where using the right ability at the right time can mean the difference between success and failure. These are some major keys, and they're exactly the same in the original Gloomhaven game as they are here in Jaws of the Lion. You don't need anyone to prepare the campaign or control the monsters. Just open the box and start playing together. Down here it talks about what it includes, but we're going to talk about this in detail as we go. I'll quickly go over it. It's got 2 scenario books including 25 scenarios, learn as you play guide and rulebook, 4 playable minis, each their own decks and character sheets. Again, those minis are interchangeable with other Gloomhaven products. It says right here, 16 unique monsters, each with standees and decks, city map with stickers, 20 event cards, or 20 plus event cards, 100 plus tokens, and then extra content revealed as you play. It does state right here, it's a standalone game, and you can play, or I should say, or as an expansion to Gloomhaven. When you first open up the box, you have a welcome to Gloomhaven. It says, stop, read this before you do anything else. Below this sheet in the box are 4 booklets as well as a map board of the city and a sheet of stickers. You can set all of those aside for now. So basically you're going to take all of what's highlighted here, set them aside. It says right here you'll see 6 punch boards filled with tokens. This is really giving you a complete breakdown of how to handle the components in the box right from the beginning. So this is awesome because you don't have to open up the box and just see all the components and go, well, what do I touch first? What do I move first? What do I need to put together first? It's literally going to walk you through that with this sheet. It continues on the opposite side as it dealt with the standees on the front side, and again will tell you exactly what you need to do and also remind you not to open up certain boxes that you see inside. Next item inside the box is the Learn to Play guide. It states, welcome to Gloomhaven, and the book purpose is meant to walk you step by step through the first 5 scenarios of the campaign, after which point you should have all the tools to continue on through the rest of the campaign. That's exactly what this aims to do. So you'll find 5 scenarios inside this book. The beginning of how to actually set up the rules for scenario number 1, for instance, and then there'll be a complete section afterwards. It even talks right here about playing by yourself and how that's going to work. So there's little notes for that as well as you go along. Pretty cool. It's going to also talk about the scenario book features, and one thing you'll notice right away, because we haven't actually got to it yet, but you can see it right here, there are no tiles in this version of Gloomhaven. It's all inside of a book. That's right. We'll see that a little later on. I'll just flip through a couple more of these pages so you can get the gist of how this is laid out. We've got one section over here for playing the game. And again, it's all broken by each scenario. So think of this book as kind of a rule book, but literally a as you play rule book, which is probably the best way to do it because it gets the game right to the table, and then whatever you need to reference has already been listed out per scenario. So you'll be focusing on maybe healing in a specific scenario like this one and maybe not in another one, that type of thing. The information is going to come at you exactly when you need to know it, and that's the best. So you got a whole bunch of scenarios in here, the 5 total, and 31 pages or so with some gorgeous artwork within the book as well. So just quickly flip through a couple more pages here so you can get a look at some of this stuff. And that is the Learn to Play book. Next book inside the box is the glossary, and this is something that should be referenced after you're going through the Learn to Play guide. So go through that first. That's going to teach you how to play, and then if you have any rules questions, the glossary is where you want to go to actually determine if you're doing something correctly or you have any further questions on the rulings, because you can see everything's laid out in alphabetical order. So if you're wondering, how an ally works, well, there's ally right there. Read it through, or adjacent. can read that. So again, just think of the keyword that you're trying to find and then search through this glossary in order to find it. And you can see everything's all broken up quite nicely. Now, one thing I'm not going to do is show you the very back of this book because it does talk about some of the treasure in the game and things like that. I don't want to spoil anything for you, but I will let you know that if I flip this corner piece and we take a look at how many pages are actually in here, I think it's around 30 to 31 pages. Yep, 31 total. But this is the gist of the glossary. Next book is the supplemental scenario book. I'll go ahead and open up the very first page, but that's as far as I'll go because I don't want to spoil too much. But you can see, yes, indeed, the scenarios are actually built inside the book themselves and will be kind of joining up with other scenarios as well. And there's all kinds of texture on the sides. It's very, very interesting. Again, don't want to spoil too much, so I'll just kind of move past that. We got a scenario book here. And again, this one likely will be kind of tied in with the one we just saw. And go ahead and show you a page, and that's about all you'll see. It does state down here at the bottom of this book, says if you haven't yet, read the first section of the Learn to Play guide before continuing on to scenario 1. So if I open this up, this is actually perfectly fine to show because this is scenario number 1. So this one shouldn't be anything too spoilery, being that it's at the very beginning of the game. But here's an idea of how the map is laid out on the game board. And this is really cool because, again, it just, I don't know, it just looks really sharp and very vivid. I like it a lot. You got all the typical things you can expect from the rule book from the past, or the scenario book from the past, where all the rules are there. But now you've got the actual game board in a book. And again, you've got a whole bunch of pages to go through. So I'm not going to spoil anything. I'll just kind of flip through them, but you can see the differences in all the different maps as you go through. In total, this book has around 50 pages. We'll flip that one closed to keep spoilers away. We have some location stickers. Certainly could be some spoilers in this one as well, so I won't spend too much time kind of diving into this one because you're going to be unlocking different locations as you go. And now we get into some token punch boards, of which there's probably quite a few. Yes, indeed, there is a bunch. So we have money and damage tokens as well as some traps. Again, if you're familiar with Gloomhaven, none of this is going to be surprising for you. You've got condition tokens, you've got more traps and treasure chests, you've got the elements here. Flipping that over to the opposite side so you guys can see it. Moving to the next tile set, we got some of the enemies in the game. Flip that over to this side. And another set of enemies as well. A lot of things that individuals will be familiar with from the original Gloomhaven, but again, we're going to see some enemies that are similar and some that are new, which is pretty cool. Another set of enemies to deal with in Gloomhaven. Again, they're all standees, so there will be some stands later on. Board number 6 here. Now here's some stuff that I'm not as familiar with. So down here we have things like Red Guard, Hatchet, Zealot. So we got some different uses for these. I'm not too sure what they're for just yet, but I'm sure I'll find out soon enough. Oh, that's pretty cool. So its own nice hard board. This is not like a thin piece of thing. This is an actual map, and it's hard and it's glossy. Looks very nice, nice high quality. So hopefully you guys can see that. So this is Gloomhaven right here. And again, you got the grid pattern. So A to F and then 1 down to 9. Looking pretty good. Then you move into here. And again, they've even provided a storage solution. So once you actually start punching this stuff out, it has a place to go, which is great. Love it. You've got dials here, so that's pretty awesome right at the gate. Got the health dial and the stamina dial, so you can kind of move those around like that. We'll take those out of the equation. Next thing is you have the characters. Now this is where I have to stop. I'm not going to show you guys the characters well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I'm going to show you the starting characters. Those are okay. But there will be some unlockable characters hiding in here probably or something. Yeah, I think these ones right here resemble scenario events or unlockable characters. That I'm not going to touch whatsoever. But these ones here should be the 4 that are the ones you start with. So we can go through those. But you can see right now there's slots for everything. There's a card slot right here for your city cards. Your event cards. You got your goals here. Cards for your items, slot for them, and then your modifier cards. So I really like the fact there actually is slots for everything. Got your enemy cards right here for the boss. Got your stands. Some more Ziplocs all tied up nicely. Underneath this, we have some interesting pieces of paper that I'm not too familiar with. Curse and Bless and monster attack modifiers. Very interesting. Okay, well that's something that's different. Unavailable items, available items. Or encountered events or new events. Interesting. And then, of course, we're all familiar with these ones. If you've played Gloomhaven before, there's a stack of them for the enemies, representing all the stats for the enemies. And then a couple of these, I like to call them like floppy disks, because that's essentially whatever I think of when I think of these. You slot these into here to denote which enemies for which, and then you track damages across and conditions across them. So got a bunch of those. And there's a slot again for these to be stored in. So let's go through some of these cards right here. So we got the Giant Viper, Stone Golem, the Black Imp, the Vermling Scout, Living Spirit, Living Corpse, the Black Sludge. Of course, these are double-sided for those that don't know. Flip them over, see the levels are changing on the numbers on the outside. Vermling Raider here. We've got the Blood Monstrosity. That does not sound good. Blood Imp, the Rat Monstrosity, the Zealot, Chaos Demon, First of the Order, Blood Horror, Blood Tumor, and that is going to do it for all of those. Now, there is a huge pile of monster ability cards in this game. Again, this is like the brains of the AI of the game. So when you're using a boss, for instance, you'll have a deck of cards for that boss, and you'll be flipping these over to determine what that boss is going to do on a given turn. For instance, move, attack, using a range, and targeting 2 people. So it's really going to tell you exactly how the game is played, and that's how everything is automated. So you can see here there is different categories of everything. You've got the Living Corpse here, you got the Imp, so they're all represented throughout. Now, I'm not going to go through each of these individually because there's a little bit of spoilers in there with knowing the different abilities of certain enemies, but showing it on this side won't really hurt too much. For example, here's a number of them. And that should give you the gist. As you can see, the modifications happening, the conditions coming in, the area of effect. So all those types of things, like whether the actual enemy is going to jump over anything. It'll tell you everything in these AI cards for the monsters. Also lets you know where they need to shuffle the deck if you see the shuffle symbol in the corner. So lots of good ideas, reasonable ideas to how these all work. There's a whole bunch of these, to be honest. So I won't go through every single one of them, but you've got your initiative order here in the top left-hand corner too. These cards I have in my hand right now are called city cards, and basically they're going to be events that are going to happen in the city. So again, there's spoilers on these. I'm not going to flip them over, but I'll just kind of show you a couple of them. You can pause the screen if you want to read them. They basically give you some flavor text as well as options, and you choose which option, and then you flip it over. And of course, your choices are going to have impacts throughout the game. Now, I called these cards when I was talking about them down here as goal cards, and they really are goal cards, but they're referred to as battle cards because you're really getting them at the beginning of a scenario, and you're going to try to accomplish them because if you do, you're going to gain a check mark, and the check marks, you get enough of them, you work towards actually leveling up and gaining some abilities within your character that are pretty cool. So this one, for instance, it says become exhausted before any other character. So if you can do that, you complete it. Of course, you have to be successful at the scenario itself too, but that is another story. So there's a whole bunch of goal cards in here, and these really aren't spoiler territory because you're going to be drawing these and everyone's going to have their own. If you're playing solo, you'll never know anybody's but your own anyway. The Acrobat here, you've got all kinds, the Assistant, the Challenger. So you'll notice most of them are just a single check, but every once in a while, there is a double check in here too, where you'll get 2 check marks, and that's where it's going to be fun because you'll have to choose as to which one you want to go after, and sometimes going after those double checks can be really tough to pull off, but ooh, there might not be any double checks in this one. It's single checks all the way. So in the larger Gloomhaven game, there are some with double checks, but this one, it seems they all stick with 1. Now let's check out the item cards inside the box. We got Eagle Eye Goggles. Again, some of these are going to be very familiar for people that have played Gloomhaven before, and there might even be some new ones in here, so I'll go through them. You can see them all. Weathered boots. Seems to be 2 of each so far. Winged shoes. Got a shield. Some hammers. Poison daggers. Iron spear. Healing potions. Got to have those potions. Stamina. Power potion. Mana Potion, Amulet of Life, Comfortable Shoes, Battle Axes, Black Candle, Stun Powder. Ooh, there's some pretty cool stuff coming in now. Boots of Striding, Barbed Chain. I'm trying to do my best to keep my thumb off the ability there, or at least the benefit that you gain by having this item. Sometimes that's hard to do. These cards are very new, they're very glossy, and they're moving really nicely in my hands, but sometimes almost too nicely. Steel Ring, Axe, some robes, and some jet boots. These cards are just considered attack modifier cards, so I'll show you the backs of them as well, and they apply to not only the monsters, but also the heroes as they build out the decks. You can see the M there for monster, but they're going to have all kinds of different modifications to the value, because again, there's no dice in this game. So you got +1s, you got 0s, you got -1s. Moving on the way through here, we got some +2s, which are better, some nulls, you don't want to see those, ×2, more nulls, but again, you get into the cursed and blessed side of things. So we'll continue on through this deck. Most of these are repeating because these will be modifications that will go into your base deck of your attack modifier that you'll be drawing. This is a bless ×2. That's awesome to have. And that is the entirety of that deck. Now let's check out the 4 starting characters inside the box. We'll start with this one right here. This is what you'll find inside the box. We got the Demolitionist, and you can see here 2 of the pack's cards say halt. Do not open this pack of cards until this character reaches level 5. This one says do not open this pack of cards until you are directed to do so. These cards are added to your attack modifier deck as your character becomes more powerful, so you won't need them at the start of the campaign. So we're actually not going to go through any of these cards, as a lot of that stuff is secretive to the character, and I don't want to spoil anything. We will take, and you can see right now the actual sheet here for the Quatryl, and if I go through each of these sheets, they're all the same. There's just multiple pages. Of course, if you want to replay the campaign, you can. I also recommend, if you plan on playing this multiple times in the future, then laminating one of them is always best. You can just erase it when you want to and take a picture with your phone and you're good to go. Here is the character board. It's very different looking than what you're used to in the Gloomhaven version in terms of the Kickstarter version. It's a lot more of a rectangle and more horizontal. This one's more vertical, but still has all the interesting things around it that you'd expect. Like it has the arrows pointing to a discard side, the active side above, and the lost pile to the right. You got your condition tracking happening here. Your items are down below. You've got your health and everything else along the bars here, and of course a picture of who you are. Flipping over to the side, you can also see your hand size as well for your starting character, and hand size is big because it's your life essentially. And you got a nice backstory for this individual. If you want a moment to actually pause the screen and read the backstory for this particular character, you can do so now. Also, you can go ahead and check out the perks, the available perks for this particular character if you're interested in playing this one. And then everything else is generic in terms of tracking along this side. Next box in line is this one right here. This character is called the Red Guard, and you'll notice there's going to be differences in the amount of cards going into the Red Guard's hand to start it off, as well as the whole perk section is going to be very, very different than the other character you just saw. We'll go ahead and flip this over to the opposite side. If you want to go ahead and pause the screen in order to read the backstory, then you can do so. Again, similar to the other pack, you've got some cards in here that will not be available until you reach level 5, and here we've got some reference cards on one side, but again, these are the main cards you'll be using for this particular character. So when you go through this pack, you'll be using cards that are stated as level 1, or if there's any X cards in here, you'll be grabbing those as well. We'll talk more about the cards per character once we go through each of the boxes. This is a modification deck. This is going to be the standard modification deck or modifier deck that you're going to start with when you begin. And as I was mentioning before, this is the pack of cards right here that will only unlock after a bit of your adventure, which will then start getting merged into this deck to make it better, as well as cards eventually coming out. And it really all hinges on what you choose in your perk list as to how this modification or modifier deck is going to change. And then we got some status tokens as well. Next character up is this one right here. This character is known as the Voidwarden and has 11 cards in hand. That's the highest one so far. Perk list right here, unique to the Voidwarden. We'll go ahead and flip this over so you can see the backstory. Feel free to pause the screen and read it if you wish. There's also, of course, a deck of cards for the Voidwarden, and I'll go through all the levels. We've also got some specific cards that will be only broken out in level 5 and above, as we've talked about, modifier cards, standard deck, as well as cards that will be cracked open and added into when the game tells you to, and some more tokens. Last but certainly not least, we have Hatchet, and you can see starts with 10 cards, specific perks listed out here, and we'll go ahead and flip this over so you can see the backstory for Hatchet, and also the color cards that go along with. I really like this light blue color. It really grabs at me. I don't even know which of these characters is the one I really want to gravitate to the most, but the color of this one really jumps at me. Status symbols or condition symbols there. We've got ourselves the typical decks of cards, so another one for level 5 and above for those standard level cards, and then we've got the modifier deck plus the additional cards that'll come with the character. All right, now let's go ahead through some of the cards inside of each of these characters we just looked at. We're going to go ahead and start off with Hatchet, seeing as Hatchet was the last one that we looked at. So let's go through the cards one at a time here. So first off, you got yourself kind of a condition or player reference card. That's going to be nice and handy. We're going to go through literally every one of the cards here in order as they come out of the pack here. So we have a card called Stopping Power, Double Throw, which apparently wants to just go throwing on its own, Disorienting Barrage, Second Wind, Center Mass. You'll notice that there's letters on these ones, right? So that's interesting. Attack 3, there's an A. This one's called Close Cuts, Center Mass. Now we're into the B's. The Favorite. And now we get into the level 1 cards. Retrieval, the one behind Retrieval, the Favorite, was also a level 1. Close Cuts, Center Mass. My guess is that the A and B, and this is just a guess, might be something to do with the first 5 scenarios when you're learning. Could be. We'll see. Stopping Power, Double Throw. Yeah, it looks like, and some of these cards are repeating in names, so that's exactly what I'm thinking is happening here. It could be wrong. Power Pitch, Follow Through, Second Wind, then the X cards. Now these are the cards that if you're familiar with the game and you really want to have some variation out of the gates, typically these X cards are, you can actually merge them in and out. You have to get rid of a card in order to bring an X card in, but you have these available from the start. Now I don't know if that's going to change in this version of the game, but that's the way it is in the Kickstarter version. So we'll see if that's the same thing, or at least similarly handled anyway. Extra Lift, Fancy Hat, Repeat Shot. Now we're getting to the level 2s. Ricochet, Fearsome Efficiency, Sharpening Blades, Ripped from Flesh, and Overwatch. And that's going to get us all the way up to level 4. And you remember, we have a pack of cards that's a level 5 and above for every single character. Those are the ones that I'm going to keep secret. I'm not going to show those during the unboxing because that's part of the beauty of moving through the game. Next character up is going to be the Voidwarden. So we have a reference card. It's double-sided, if you didn't know that from the first one. We have Backboon, Wicked Scratch, Suggestion, Gift of the Void, Lure of the Void, another one of those, but a little different, Wicked Scratch, Signs of the Void. Now we're into the level 1s, Close to the Abyss, Gift of the Void, Black Boon, Freeze the Soul, Wicked Scratch, Turn Out the Lights, Lure the Void, Grasp of Doom. Look at the top of that card. Look at the conditions attached to that. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Master Influence, Suggestion, Resigned Frenzy, Cold Embrace, Sap Warmth, Give and Take, Crushing Cold, Taunting Fate, big heal there, Commanding Presence, Savage Instinct for level 4, and lastly level 4, The Last Journey. Next up we have the Demolitionist. Reference card to start us off, Implode, Knock Out the Support, Piston Punch, Explosive Blitz, The Big One, 1-2 Punch, The Big One. We're in the B's now. 1-2 Punch, Wind Up. Actually, we're in the B's for a little bit there. Crushing Weight, Knockout Support, Explode, Implode, Piston Punch, Explosive Blitz, The Big One, 1-2 Punch, X cards, we've got Rubble, Level, Lobbed Charge, Robotic Enhancement, Crash Protocol, we're getting into the level 1s, level 2s, Firebombs, level 3s, Nowhere to Run, Remote Detonation, and Extra Fuel. And last but certainly not least, we have the Red Guard. Reference card for the Red Guard, Flaming Sickle. Starting with the A's, Blinding Sickle, Twirling Stabs, Shocking Advance, Desert, I wish I had Desert, Desert Knight, Shield Spikes. Getting into the A's, now in the B's, Desert, again, no, Desert Knight. I just want Desert, it's all that's on my mind right now. Flaming Sickle, B, Swift Strength, Healing Sands, Shield Spikes, Flaming Sickle, we're in level 1 still, Blinding Sickle, Twirling Stabs, Flaming Sword, that looks cool, Shocking Advance, Shield of the Desert, Desert Knight, Warrior of the Sun is the first X card, Blade Dance, look at this one, Precision Strike, we got level 2s, Harvest Sickle, Barbaric Instincts, Warmth of the Sun. The enemies will be feeling the warmth of the sun. Strangling Chain, number 3. Radiant Sickle for 4. And Burn Away the Dark for the last one. Now, just so we're perfectly clear, again, what you just saw was all of the cards for the character that they can have at the beginning of their games, during that Learn to Play section, and then the X cards to switch in and out, plus all the way up to level 4. Remember, there's sealed packages 5 and beyond that I am not showing for each character, so there's even more powerful cards available. Again, to avoid spoilers, I'm not going to be showing you those. You can discover them on your own. Right here in front of you, you'll see 4 of the 8 boxes that I pointed at earlier in the video, and I specified these would all be spoilers territory. Well, I didn't realize, for some weird reason in the moment, that 4 of them are actually the characters, of course. So I definitely need to show you guys the characters that we just went through in terms of their miniatures. So we'll check out each of the 4 of those. The other 4 boxes inside the box that are sealed up with letters, numbers, and symbols on them will only be open when the game specifies they should be. First one we're going to check out is the Red Guard. Here we have the Red Guard. I'm going to go ahead and just spin this around so you can see the detail from all sides of the miniature. Very nice. I like the tone of the actual miniature itself in terms of its color. It's got an ivory-ish kind of look to it, which I really like. Hatchet is up next. And here's a look at Hatchet. I'll go ahead and try to give you angles because he's kind of hiding his face there underneath of his awesome looking hat. You can see his axe kind of buried underneath of his cape. It's pretty awesome. Great detail on the miniatures too. They look really good. Now let's see what the Demolitionist looks like. This miniature is definitely the smallest of the bunch. It has to be. But I guess based on its explosive power is probably going to be one of the ones that affects the most area. Pretty cool looking miniature too. Last but not least, we have the Voidwarden, who is also definitely able to affect a lot of area with its attacks. AoE attacks are going to be a thing for this character, and again, a very cool looking pose. Very dynamic this one is. You got the staff there, you got the book in hand. Great detail all the way around too on the clothing. Quite happy with the miniatures in this one. So as you can see here, there is nothing left inside the box that we haven't covered. We didn't really look at the standees up close, but these are just standees. We've got the elites in yellow and the regulars in white. That's pretty much it. The rest of it we've already seen, except for these boxes, which we have no idea what they represent just yet. This one, for instance, has A on the side. You got B, C, and D. And that's going to do it for the unboxing for Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. I really hope this helps you make an informed decision on whether or not you want to pick this game up in retail, as now you've seen everything that comes inside the box minus any major spoilers. Now, there might have been some minor spoilers here and there in terms of the cards and things like that, but again, based on my experience playing the original Gloomhaven, the multiple printings of it, as well as playing some of the expansions that were released, This particular unboxing here has nothing inside of it that's going to spoil or ruin the experience for you, and I did my best to avoid all of that so you can make an informed decision for yourself as to whether this is something that interests you. Something else that might interest you is the fact that as we wrap up this unboxing video right now, we are going to head into a setup. That's right, we're going to be diving into a campaign adventure together as we're going to be playing through Jaws of the Lion, starting with the Learn to Play guide. So if you're new to Gloomhaven, or even if you're an experienced individual, this is still going to have new content for you, and I'm really excited to dive into this playthrough. But before we do, we got to set the game up. So I'm going to show you exactly what you need to actually bundle up and get to the table to get going with Jaws of the Lion. So if you'll join me, there'll be a video following this one that'll get you right into the setup, and then we'll dive into part number 1 in the overview. Thanks again for watching the unboxing, and as always, keep on rolling solo.